Having heard and read the battles, bloodshed of gory fields of human slaughter, wherein he who did the most murder he was greatest hero, having heard and read the human butchers and butchery, my heart and turned from one, and I shuddered at the picture to the other. Now, however, these images of horrors returned. I still hated them, but all others it seemed to me that the ball-burning shoemaker was the most atrocious fiend that ever trod the earth. In my boyish frenzy, I vowed that he was an ogre, giant, demon, and all else was horrible and bad, to rid the earth of whom would be doing especially and particular favor to God, nature, and humankind. Amidst all the scourges and pests who had ever trod the earth of the Genghis Khan to Lord Jeffreys, not one loomed up as half so criminal, half so deserving of the intensest scorn and maledictions of human race as was the unfortunate and guilty cobbler. We resolved that he must die, and die by powder and fire. But in the consequence of fact and the explosive grains were rather unpopular just then, while guns, pistols, firecrackers, double-headers, and torpedoes were strictly prohibited by the constable round the corner, we concluded to defer the execution of the malefactor till the ensuing 4th of July, then a matter of some 8 months' distance. But at last it came. Our revenge had slept, but was by no means extinguished. The ogre dwelt in the same place still. The hour for dire retribution drew fearfully near, and at length arrived. The cobbler's doom was sealed. Our maleficent Congress, boys, all under 12, had resolved that he must die, then or never so far as we were concerned. Pistols and powder still being as scarce as ever, we assailed the enemy with a large string of ignited Chinese crackers in lieu of guns and bullets, articles de campagne, not procurable owing to the limited resources of our combined equiture. We suffered a defeat, a rout, total and complete, nor did one of us escape with what the cobbler called a welting, for our shoulders tingled with many an hour after the application of a strip of leather, wielded by the stalwart right arm of the vindictive man. Now it so happened that nearly opposite the scene of this farce there stood a tall flagstaff, Tom Riley's 5th Ward Liberty Pole. It was called, and with this pole is associated not only the moral of my story, but also one of more singular experiences ever undergone by a human soul, while incarnated in tabernacle of flesh and blood, nerve and sinew, muscle and matter. After mutually smarting from the application of the cobbler's welt, we took counsel and refuge beneath the liberty pole aforesaid. And the last I remember of this affair is that, while gazing upon his triumphantly retreating figure, it stuck to me that very quintessence of my felicity on earth would be achieved could I have the exquisite joy and unsurpassable pleasure of hanging him to the weathercock of the summit of the flagstaff. This would be to me, to us, a very heavenly state indeed. And so I hung him, in fancy to the north corner of the vane, enjoyed his imaginary struggles for a while, and then went home. Years passed. My childhood troubles were forgotten, and man's estate had come with all its griefs, cares, and strifes, and from the student of revenge I became one of the science of forgiveness. During one of these latter years I became interested in the question, has man a death-surviving soul or not? And to the solution of this problem I bent the entire force and energy of my mind, not hesitating to make all sorts of experiments that held out hope or possibility of my reaching a definite conclusion in regards to this subject. In pursuance of this grand object, I one day made an experiment which, in some respects, was but too successful. It was not by means of drugs or potions, magnetism or spiritual circles. At the end of one of these experiments, I became totally lost to the external world, its surroundings and its influences, and found myself in the world of spirit, in the midst of the vast, boundless chaos in which no sound struck upon me save the rattling of the bones of a huge and ghastly skeleton which swayed and swung to and fro in the bleak air of the point of the vane to the top of the vast of the pole. Itself the very spectre of one which, mentally, I had hung my mortal foe. Attracted irresistibly by my ominous sounds, I turned my gaze towards it, when instantly the horrible ghastly thing became endowed with life and speech, ventricle, power of speech, and it shrieked into my startled ears these terrible, ominous words. Wretch, look upon the work of thy hands. Here didst thou place me in the years now gone, and here I have swung and swung. Here must I gaze and swing during many and many a coming age. Gaze upon this cord, look on it. Think of it placed around my neck by you. The flesh once with these bones which now rattle your ears. Your ears hast thou by the elements been changed and dissolved into atoms. Do you hear? Into atoms finer than flecks of light in a sunbeam. Aye, finer than the scintillations of yonder star, the point of the buckle of Orion's belt. And that star is an eye, and it watches you. And as you see, it is the only one in your horizon from the zenith to nadir. The star is the centennial appointed by him. To see it to you, escape not the doom. Ha, ho, ho. Yes, it was I who burnt your ball, and revenge for what you burnt your soul. Your burnt soul. Ha, ho, ho. And that soul must burn and keep on burning in its own self-kindled flames until the fiery tongue shall have licked your joints, your marrow, your very marrow, and keep licking them until. In God's name, what and when? I trembling inquired. And from between the chattering, the clattering, horrible jaws of the ghastly thing, there hissed back his answer. Atom by atom, the elements whereof my body was formed shall once again cleave to these bare bones, and of their own volition persuaded thereto the spectacle of thy agony, softened by thy prayers, quit their gambols in space, their festive sports among the star beams, and rearrange themselves into the original flesh and blood and nerve and cartilage and lymph and muscle, wherein these bones were clothed once upon a time in dead years of infinite past. But, I cried as the sweat agony seemed to ooze even out of my spectral cheeks, there must be some mistake. The crime imputed was never committed by me. I never slew you, nor anyone else. True, I remember you, but I only wished and willed to do it, shrieked my tormentor from the gibbet. And whatever the soul strongly wills is done, so far as the human responsibility is concerned. You wished and willed me to be here, and here I am, by virtue of a great mighty law. Hast thou not heard the law laid down by the sufferer of cavalry? Whoso looketh at a woman to lust after her hath already committed adultery in his heart, and must pay the penalty therefor. And thinkest thou that this only application of the great law of justice and compensation? Fool! Know that thy crime is just as great if thou hast with thine own fingers put the cord of murder around my neck, about my neck. The crime thought is as great as the crime act. So it is with thee, thou murderer. Man is judged from the desires and motives of his heart, whether these be good for or ill, and never from for his own act alone. For this reason that actions are often the result of instantaneous impulse, external pressure and circumstance, but motives are the creatures of will, the perfect offspring of desire.